powerful people. We are here today with Curtis Artis, youth advocate and community activist, and he is on the spot. Get you a good question out of here.
Okay, so this is how we do.
This is how we're doing it.
Okay.
All right. If you had the power to solve one global issue, which one would you choose and why?
Racism.
Speak on it.
It's what's holding the world back. We need equality. And without equality, it's always going to be one group or multiple groups of people who are suffering for no reason but for the benefit of the more powerful group. So racism, it would end a lot.
Okay. Period.
Yes.
So you have a lot of incredible ideas, but those ideas have been generated from a complicated history.
Yes.
Tell me how you got into the work that you do and how some of those challenges or those complicated elements of your past have been able to propel you forward.
Well, really, what made me get into what I do now, which is helping individuals with checkered past, was when I was young, my neighborhood, the neighborhood I grew up in, a lot of people were affected by the criminal justice system. And I constantly heard, as a young person, you always heard, if you catch a charge, you'll never be able to work again.
Right.
And at a young age, I got into some trouble. And it made me look at people differently, because people who once looked at me as a normal kid judged me. So that right there set in place where I at probably about 12 or 13 is when I knew I needed to help people like me. I knew I wanted to help individuals who were being judged by mistakes.
Right.
So I decided when I didn't know anything about college, but a friend of mine, his brother went to college at North Carolina A&T, and he was telling us about college. And I was like, when I go to college, I'm going to become a probation officer for youth.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And he was like, why would you work with youth? And I was like, because I don't trust adults. So from that point on, I just knew I had to be working to help individuals, young people who had been affected by the system.
Okay.
And I started my first triad. It was in 1984. I went to Norfolk State, and my major was criminal justice. But due to my circumstances, once again, I got in trouble with the law. But then getting in trouble with the law showed me how the system really worked.
Okay.
Because as a young person, you don't really have an understanding of how the system works. You just know you're involved in it. But as an adult, as a young adult, early 20s, you get in trouble, you really get to see how it works.
The inner workings of it.
Inner workings of the system. And I saw it was biased because I got in trouble for some things that I was doing with some Caucasian kids. And I noticed what happened to me didn't happen to them. My experience was totally different from their experience. And I was like, oh, this ain't right. But I was caught up in the system by then, so I rolled with the punches. But I never ventured far away from it in my personal life because I'm a reader. So I would read all these books on the criminal justice system, court cases, all these things. And I just paid attention to what was going on in society. One of the things that happened back then was this dude, John DeLorean, he made a car that was in the doors opened up.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, so
like the Back to the Future car.
That's the car. That's
Yeah.
the exact car. So he got busted in 1987, 88 with 30, 40 kilos of cocaine.
Okay, that's a lot.
That was a hell of a lot back then. And he didn't go to jail. People around him went to jail, but he didn't go to jail. And I noticed then, I was like, yeah, I see people that I go to school with here at Norfolk State getting in trouble with 7 grams of cocaine and going to prison for then 10, 20 years. And like, this is crazy. So I'm just watching the injustice of the system, keeping abreast of what's going on for personal reasons. And I just knew I had to do this. So then my life went on. I still didn't get my life together. As I got older, I eventually went to prison And when I came home from prison, well, no, my first day in prison, my very first day in prison, I met the young man who they said threatened to bomb Liberty University with Jerry Falwell's film. And I talked to this young man. I was like, this is a kid, man. He impulsive, but he was a kid. He really wasn't trying to do anything, but they was going to fry him. And he was a Caucasian kid in a jail cell with 30 people and probably 28 African American. So he was a target. I didn't like that. So started talking to him, and I noticed every day he came to my cell. Every day he came to my cell, he wanted to talk. After a while, people started asking me what he was talking about. I wouldn't tell them what me and him talked about, but then other people started talking to me, wanted to talk to me.
Right.
And I saw that, we were misrepresented. We didn't have the proper representation. We had people fighting for us that had never experienced what we had been through. So you saw people with sympathy, but not empathy. So they didn't know how to actually advocate for you. So that day I was like, when I get out of here, because I knew I was going to prison, I was cool with that. It's a part of the game. I said, when I get out of here, I'm going back to school, and I'm gonna work with people with criminal histories and go from there. And that's exactly what I did. The whole entire time I was in prison, I basically was a people watcher and a picker of brains to see what made you get here, what did you know, boom, boom, so I could find out where we're lacking to help the people that's trying to help us. Because that was a big problem too. I saw when I became incarcerated that the average person had no knowledge of what they were going through. They knew the street lingo. They knew how to say the bravado from the street. Oh man, they messed my case up. They did this. They ain't catch me with nothing. I'm like, yo, was you doing what they said you was doing? Yeah, so they caught you. And a lot of people couldn't formulate that. They couldn't break it down and connect the dots. And I saw that was because of a lack of education, a lack of communication skills, and they needed someone to speak for them. But that person had to be someone from within inside the system, because whether America wants to believe it or not, the criminal justice system has never been fixed. It's always been broken. So what America thinks is going on is not what's going on. So you need somebody inside to fix anything.
So talk to me about this idea you've shared, people being educated about their own situation. How important is that when you're seeking representation, your personal understanding of your charges, your whatever's in the case file, in order to be the best partner with your attorney?
Well, if you don't understand what you're going through and can't comprehend it, you're going to give misleading information to the people that's trying to help you.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of emotion-based information instead of fact-based information. When you go into court, it's going to say the United States of America against Curtis Artis. The United States of America against me?
The whole
That's
shebang.
what it says on your paper when you go into a federal court system. The United States of America against you. Boom. You can't win. You don't have the resources that they have. Your resources are going to be used up, if you have any. So you're going to be basically dependent on someone who's trying to work pro bono, someone's trying to build up a name for themselves, or someone they're advocates, but they need to know who you are. They need to really know what your case is. They need to know, what did you actually do? You have a lot of guys, all they know is, I was caught with the dope. It's so much more to your case than that. How was you caught with the dope? What was the circumstance? If you was in a vehicle, was the dope in reaching distance of you? Was the vehicle in your name? All these things play a part in your case, because you can beat a case with that. I know this firsthand because I beat a case like that. But most guys don't know. So their lack of knowledge helps them get convicted, because they talk in such a general terms. When you're getting in this court of law and you're fighting for your life, your freedom, you got to be able to tell everything, because those are the little things that the court system is putting in there. So if you don't know how to break down and read your paperwork, which a lot of people can't, the words throw them off. You're gonna say, man, I was just selling a few. No, when the terms come out, they're gonna throw them out there in big terms. And if you don't understand it, you're gonna be arguing the technicality of the language
Mm-hmm.
because you don't understand the language. You got to be able to express what you did exactly. And then you have to be honest with what you did, especially when you're trying to get assistance. A lot of guys don't understand the fact that your lawyer's there to help you.
Right.
They can't do anything to hurt you. But through myths and all these, the hearsay of what man, my lawyer threw me under the bus. Nah, your lawyer used what information you gave him, and you couldn't give him any. The more you know about the criminal justice system and what you're facing, the better prepared you are to make better decisions.
Okay.
And a lot of guys, they just know what's been passed down from one generation to other in common street terms, and we're so used to just saying the system screwed us because we don't know how to communicate to our lawyers, to advocates. You might have an agency fighting for your freedom, but you can't give them no information because your lack of education has stopped you from being able to communicate.
And so there's a before and after effect to this, right? Because the after effect is when you're in the situation and you don't have the education to be an adequate advocate for yourself. The before effect is when you don't have the adequate education to prevent some of these things from happening, to see other options. So share with us a bit about what you're doing now to help people before they get into that cycle of being in the system.
Well, right now, I'm doing youth outreach. I
Mm-hmm.
also do what is considered credible messenger. I also do what is considered peer recovery. The credible messenger part is trying to get individuals who had similar life experiences to the individuals who are in trouble to work with them, to talk to them, and explain to them the circumstances and the consequences of their actions right
Right.
now. I can't tell someone how to bake a cake because I ain't baked a cake.
It's be either.
So what good would I do in the kitchen to you? That's the same thing with the criminal justice system.
Right.
And that's a hindrance. You need someone who's experienced what you've experienced so they can get a better understanding of what you've been through. Because sometimes, even in the court of law, it can be considered extenuating circumstances, and it can lead to a lighter sentence. Little things like that come into play. So with a credible messenger, they've been through these things. They can talk someone through it like, okay, I know what you're saying. I feel what you got going on. But if somebody would have introduced me to this one thing right here, I wouldn't even made that mistake.
Right.
Like you got people with domestic violence, kids that's watching domestic violence, they don't know nothing about these domestic violence hotlines, what agencies in their city can help them. But if you have a credible messenger there that has experienced domestic violence and has been through that, they're going to tell them about all these agencies. They can communicate to them in a manner where the language isn't too harsh and too judgmental, where that person will open up. That's what you have to be when you're a credible messenger. You have to be someone who they can open up to. And if you've experienced it, you're not coming at it from a harsh, judgmental place
Mm-hmm.
where most people do. You were wrong, but this is what happened.
Right.
What happened behind the scenes?
Yeah. What are the other layers to the
Yeah.
story?
And if you're not a credible messenger, most of the times you're going to do your job. And your job is not to find out what is behind the scenes. Your job is to ask these standardized questions what's your name? How far did you go in school? What was your family life like? Blah, blah. And they're going to keep it basic. A credible messenger knows it's so many layers, and let's get to this.
Right.
And I can help you get here
Mm-hmm.
because of what they've been through.
You know, what's interesting is you brought up resources in the community and being on the other side as a person who, work for workforce development, have a deeper understanding of all of the resources that are available. And we're constantly looking for people to take advantage of these resources. And there's a frustration like, we know people need this. Where are they? But the gap is that there aren't people, credible messengers, people who are in the community, who are touching folks who desperately need the resources that can be that bridge.
Yeah, that's a big gap. Let's just use a reentry program.
Mm-hmm.
Reentry programs should consist of helping housing, clothing, food, transportation, jobs, all these things. Okay, most people can't tell you where their reentry program is because all reentry programs do is have meetings. They have meetings amongst themselves to get numbers up. See, the agencies who are there to help, they have a job to do, and I understand that. But their job is based off numbers and
Mm-hmm.
not actual help. So they post up in a specific spot, a building that I might not be able to get to. Let's say I live in I'm in Danville, and I live in the section closest to the North Carolina border.
Mm-hmm.
But the reentry spot is on the other side going towards Lynchburg. And I've just came home from prison, and I don't have no transportation and no one to depend on to get there. But I got to find your office because it doesn't say reentry site. It's always hidden up amongst another name. So I don't know how to get to you. I don't know how to get to you. And even when you're trying to deal with these resources, it's a limit on what they can do. I can only do such and such for you once in 6 months. And that might be help you with help pay the rent where you living at.
Right.
And they're going to say, but you live with your family. Your family don't care about none of that stuff right there. They care that you are another person here.
Right.
You need to help pay these bills. How do I pay these bills? When even as a resource, you're limiting to what you can do for me. So now you might help me pay 1 month's rent, have a portion of 1 month's rent, but the next month I still haven't gotten a job because you don't realize, whether you want to believe it, everybody's judgmental. This is not a forgiving society. So it's going to be twice as hard for you to get a job. Right now in the United States of America, 800,000 jobs available. 600,000 people come home from prison every year. Those people need jobs. They need jobs. It's mandatory to complete your probation. And a lot of them have the skills,
Right.
the necessary skills. But if they're not one of those individuals that went in like a big time lawyer or some big time this and that, they're not going to get the access to the jobs. So what do you do for that person? And that's where, going back to credible message, that's where we play a part, because we figure out the jobs as a credible message. If I'm looking for a job for an individual with a criminal history, and if I've been through that, I'm going to know jobs that will hire individuals with criminal histories. So you don't get discouraged from being turned down 20 times.
Right. So your mission as a credible messenger is more than just these activities. You actually have a book. So
Yes.
Talk about that.
Well, I have a book. So I have a book coming out about how to train credible messengers.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody hasn't been to prison. That's the first thing.
Right.
Everybody that you help hasn't been to prison. That's a small portion of the people that you're going to help. A lot of the people you're going to help, they're going through everyday life circumstances that are affecting them that can be very, very hard. You might be a young man who has a baby, you're trying to go to school, but you don't have no family. What motivates that young person to go to school? When I have a child that I have to take care of, and you want me to go to school, and I've been running around reckless with no family in my life for, let's say, 4 years. My whole high school, I've been couch surfing. What makes me want to go to school when I know it was somebody that didn't want to take care of me, and I'm definitely going to take care of this little person? So we do training for those things, because not everyone is going to, all the situations are not going to be the same. And going to prison doesn't make you a credible messenger. Going to prison makes you someone who's returning home from prison.
Right.
That's all it makes you.
Mm-hmm.
So we need proper training so we don't hurt these young people. You have to have structure with anything. And if you don't have structure and a credible message, you're gonna have a lot of young people being led down the wrong path. So with the book that I have coming out, it's showing you the structure, how to engage with these young people. Because too many times you have older people, and when I mean older people, 35 telling you that a 20-year-old is the worst person they've ever seen.
Mm.
And how can you say that? You need to know how to engage with these young people, because engagement is the first thing that dictates the rest of your relationship. And most adults are going to come as a do as I say type of mode. That didn't work with me. I don't know how many people it do work with.
Right.
So you got to know the resources that are out there and the limitation of those resources so you can use other resources. It's mad limitations, and you're going to have to know how to navigate through that. You're going to have to be able to do so many more things, connect people with other people.
Right. Right. That's important. Building the relationships and making the connections so people aren't isolated
Yes.
in their scenarios. Well, just appreciate you to the highest for taking your complicated journey and utilizing all of these things from the very beginning to create this wonderful message that you're sharing, and to be an active, credible messenger in the community for all the hours that you pour into young people and the patience that you've tapped into to be able to do this work. We appreciate you and want to celebrate you and the new book. Thank you so much for coming on the spot.
Well, thank you, but I have to thank you for more than just let me come on here, because you were a big help to me when we were at Workforce together.
Yeah, we
Because,
had some times.
yeah, but talking to you was a big help.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.